Alright guys, TouchCrabby back again today. Hope you're all enjoying your Thursday. Today I wanted to talk about CWL London, well, it's not even CWL London, CDL London, the first one of the two this upcoming weekend. Well, I'll be at the Copperbox on Saturday and Sunday for sure. Wondering exactly how I'm going to be able to review the games, because looking at the schedule just before making this video, which we'll go on to in a few minutes time, when I want to look at some key storylines and some predictions for the weekend, and I'm sure you guys will share your thoughts in the comment section below as always. But looking at the schedule, it's going to be kind of difficult to work how I'm going to do the recap videos around it. Probably what I'll end up doing is just whatever we happen to be doing after that event in the evening, just going out for drinks or whatever, I'll just go ahead and do that and try and make the recap the following morning. Might not be the best video, might be a little bit, a few hours later than it would be otherwise, but, I don't necessarily want to sacrifice how much I'm going to try and enjoy things just to get the video a few hours early. Hope that sounds reasonable enough. Let's get into it then. First of all, wanted to say this. So this fantastic individual, I forgot about this. I saw this on Reddit this morning. This guy last year dressed up as a Foster's can, and he was in the casino on Sunday night, Monday morning. Like, he kept coming in, and they didn't like him wearing it, so he took it off, snuck in, and they kept putting it back on again. I think they kicked him out like 3 times, and he still kept managing to sneak back in. Honestly, unbelievable scenes. He was at the event all weekend, and I guess this is, I doubt he had even slept. This was probably the morning after on the Monday, when somehow he stumbled across MattG, and here he is with the London trophy that 100 Thieves won, of course, at that event. Incredible stuff. Thought that would set the scene for the video. Like if you guys enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's get into this firstly then. Huntsman versus the NBA All-Stars, February 13th at Michigan Avenue, downtown Chicago. Free entry, meet and greet with Scump Formal and Hector Arcites and Big Timer and the NBA All-Stars they're getting in. I'm not exactly sure which NBA All-Stars they're going for, but this is a really cool stuff. They're going to have some Pro versus All-Star Call of Duty action, exclusive merchandise, so big moves for the Huntsmen. If you guys are in the region of Chicago, of course, maybe this is something you'd consider going to, 2 to 6 p.m, free entry, of course. So, that's really cool stuff to see from some of these Call of Duty brands that have just started out really, building a following and building a name for themselves. That's what kind of makes it appealing for new investors. Obviously, in Chicago Huntsman's place, NRG has been around esports for a while, but some of the venture capitalist groups, they can come in and, build a new brand on a complete level playing field, I suppose, with no other existing brands kind of in the scene, even though that's not fully the case in Call of Duty, but you see what I mean. So other organizations could potentially have that opportunity as well. And then I just wanted to show you this from Rich. So Rich Campbell, of course, you may well know Rich if you watched the scene a while ago. He was, I don't exactly know when he came in, but definitely Infinite Warfare. He was a pretty popular individual around the scene. Then he left. I think he's been doing some Dota 2 stuff. They really seem to like him over there. But he's going to be returning to the desk here in London. Pretty funny video he does here actually on it, which I'll play for you guys in a second. Mimicking the Crimsix video, which I showed you maybe a week or so now ago, where he talks about how he has the poster of the championship, the World Championship, on the wall. And that he sees Scump and Formal every day, but they don't necessarily see him. Kind of funny. This is Rich's parody of it.
Nameless actually made me this poster. It's of us casting Call of Duty together at COD Champs. You may not see me every day if you're watching Call of Duty or if you're on the desk, but I see you. Every morning when I wake up and get out of bed, the first thing I see in the morning is that poster, and I don't want to do anything else but be on the Call of Duty desk. That stupid f***ing poster. That's why I'm coming back home.
So here we go. This is what the event is looking like this weekend. Of course, this is a proper tournament style format. You've got teams playing each other in GSL group format. Global StarCraft League, I think, is the type of system. Effectively, what we're looking at is a double elimination bracket within the group play. 2 groups of 4 teams, and then whoever gets out the groups, the top 2 teams from each group, in a win 2 before you lose 2 type format, whoever gets out those 4 teams will go on to a single elim bracket, semi-finals, grand finals. That's the weekend. So, no Bravo station. I imagine every single game is going to be played front and center on the main stage, which is going to be cool, because then it means that all the fans that are going to be possibly there are all in one place at all times, because last year at the Copperbox, there may be more people who attended total last year's event, given it was the only one of the year, and this time there's 2, so maybe less people will attend this time, but they'll all be concentrated around the main stage. Well, not necessarily all of them. Some people might be watching the amateur stuff, but there's no Bravo Charlie Delta station with other professional teams playing. So that should kind of concentrate things a little bit more, which should be better for the crowd atmosphere, which of course is the first real key storyline to talk to, harkening back to this this bloke here. Of course, the crowd was fantastic last year. If you guys attended London or if you watched it, it was a lot of fun to be part of. and, real football culture over here. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can live up to the expectations this year and have a good environment. Last year we drowned the place dry of beer both days, or maybe even all 3 days. At least the Saturday and Sunday, they ran out of beer. So hopefully we can try and do it again if you guys are attending. So anyway, these are the events. So it starts off 11 a.m. Saturday, 8th of February. I'm not sure I'll even actually be able to be here for the first game, but we'll have to see how it goes. Regardless, Paris versus New York. Firstly, let's just go through the schedule in terms of how the matches are going. So this is 11 a.m. UK time, which means that this is starting at 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific time, which isn't pretty. If you guys are from Australia, this may actually work out a little bit better for you. But even then, maybe the late games will be better because it will be early morning for you. It's an awkward situation. But regardless, this is going to be a really early start for a lot of people. So these are the first 4 group games. Then we go on to some more group games here on Saturday. Then we go into the Sunday games, of course. So kicking off at 10:30 a.m. on the Sunday, which is kind of what I was talking about. Like, it's going to be difficult for me to get up and make a video, get it published with significant more time before this goes live. So hopefully, if I get up early enough, I can get a video up kind of early. But it won't be too long before the event actually does kick off again. So, difficult situation, but it is what it is. And then, of course, Sunday, you've got 12 p.m. They're giving them about an hour and a half for these games each. So 1:30, 3 p.m. And then we go on to the finals. So I guess this is the... I don't exactly know what they're doing with the challenger side of things. I wonder if they're going to have that on stage. But I guess by finals, they mean the final 4 teams. They've got the 2 semis and then the final at 8 p.m., finishing around 10, if every series sticks to an hour and a half. Intriguingly, right here, they gave Chicago Huntsmen versus Los Angeles Guerrillas 2 hours, whereas other matches seem to get an hour and a half. A little bit of a confusing, confusing situation, but that is what it is. Maybe they've got something else planned around here to London. So let's have a look here in more detail at these matches and some of the storylines we can look at. So firstly, let's just go through and do predictions. Paris versus New York. I imagine it's difficult to say, right? New York do have 0 on their teams. There's that kind of home blood. At the same time, Paris have Zed, of course, and they also have the Australian guys. So probably more support for the Paris team in London. It's going to be a weird dynamic, right? Because if anything, I support Paris more than I do New York, being from the UK. Zed, the Aussies, I like them, whatever. But they are Paris. They're not London. Then what's worse, right? New York or Paris? If you're a London fan, like it's not a in terms of geographically, it's difficult to weigh that up. Technically, Paris should be worse, but maybe their team is more likeable from a UK standpoint. Going to be interesting to see how the crowd factor plays into this. But on what we saw on the Minnesota weekend, Paris should win this in theory. Dallas, I'm going to take Dallas over Seattle. If their search and destroy is still suffering Seattle, I think Dallas will get the better of them, which could be a very exciting prospect, because that could well mean a rematch with Chicago, because Dallas and Chicago are both in Group A, as you can see right here. Chicago are playing Los Angeles Guerrillas. If they beat them, which I imagine they will off the form they showed at Minnesota, Chicago versus Dallas will be the match to get out of the pools. Then on the other side of things, we got London-Toronto. This could be a closer match than some people are predicting, given that Paris smoked London. But I'm going to say home soil, 4 p.m. on the Saturday. People are going to, have some drinks in their hands. This could be a fun one. And I'm going to say London are going to beat Toronto, partly due to hometown advantage. So then, of course, it moves on. And these are the overall participants. We'll have a look at that in a second when we talk storylines. But first of all, let's talk about what this bracket could look like. So Dallas-Seattle, let's say Dallas win, they go on to round 2. Let's say Chicago win, they go on to this round. Then you've got Seattle versus Los Angeles Guerrillas to make it out of the tournament. If you lose this, you go out in last place. And honestly, it could go either way. I'm very tempted to say Los Angeles Guerrillas win this and Seattle go out of the tournament immediately, just on what I saw in the Search and Destroy. I imagine they're working on the Search and Destroy really heavily, are Seattle. And, Eggs doesn't really like the UK too much, always complains about the weather and the food and all of this stuff, so maybe he's not having the best time in London up to this point. But still, in theory, if Seattle are going to lose both their searches in series again and it continues to be a poor game mode, I think Los Angeles Guerrillas should win it, given they showed some good promise at Minnesota. That's going to be my prediction. Then they will go on to play the loser of Dallas-Chicago. On what we saw at Minnesota, we can't really say that Dallas are going to win, because Chicago, took them to town, really. Did Chicago on the Dallas Empire. So then it's Dallas Empire versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. I'm going to say Dallas Empire making out. So we got Chicago and Dallas making it out of this ball. Then the other ball, I'm going to say Paris win. I'm going to say London win. I guess I've just got to base it off last weekend and say that Paris are going to beat London again. Then again, I don't really think... I'd like to think that's not the case. You know what? Let's just be biased. Spiciest, and say London are going to win that. They make it out the pool in first place. Then it goes down to New York versus Toronto. Let's say Toronto win, then Paris drop down. Let's say Paris beat Toronto. So let's say we have Dallas, Chicago, Paris, and London make it out as your 4 top teams. Because London came out in seed 1 in my example, they will play up against the Dallas Empire seed 2 from the first 4 in their first match. So these semi-finals in that case would be Chicago versus Paris, and Dallas versus London would be the 2 squads. At that point, I imagine it's either Chicago in the finals or potentially London can beat Dallas, but in theory, we're going to get a Dallas win there in terms of how the power rankings should look at the current time. So I think there's a very, very good chance here that we get a Chicago versus Dallas final, or if it's not Chicago, we get a London final, which is going to be great for the home fans, right? Because last year, they were incredibly loud for the UK teams, reciprocity when they were playing, but also there was a lot of support from the UK crowd towards Scump and the OpTic guys and Clayster and the United guys, and it was pretty rowdy. There's a great chance here that we see some of those really spicy matchups a lot during this tournament. We could well see Chicago versus Dallas in pools, which is honestly pretty damn likely, and then we could see it once again in the grand finals or even the semi-finals depending on how things work out. Actually, they wouldn't be able to match up in the semis. It would have to be, if they do play in round 2 here, they would then meet up in the final, or they don't. But there's a decent chance that we get some really spicy matches, like London versus Paris, of course, is the big one. In theory, geographically, Chicago versus Dallas, of course, is the big one. The Scump versus Crimsix, all of that drama. Then again, I didn't even get into the fact that we've got Chicago versus Los Angeles Guerrillas, first game up on stage, which is Aches versus some of the old OpTic guys, like the core of that OpTic team. Going to be interesting to see how Los Angeles Guerrillas fare, because yes, I've said Chicago are going to win. At the same time, when you've looked at Aches' teams in the past, up against OpTic Gaming, and Chicago is effectively the old OpTic Gaming, it's going to be interesting to see if any of his powers carry over from the previous era, because up against OpTic before, he would always put on a clinic and either win the series or make it competitive and do crazy things against OpTic, even when it wasn't expected. Now they're not OpTic anymore, they're Chicago Huntsman. Does that hidden power still apply to him? Dallas Seattle's interesting as well, because you've got Kambo on the Seattle team, Crimsix on the Dallas team, so that's a big duo to go at it. London versus Toronto, we're going to have Bance on Toronto, so, some old rivalries there. And then Paris, New York to kick things off as well. Maybe slightly less spicy, but still a very interesting matchup. Like, Temp, and that could be, in theory, that should be a very strong team. So, it seems difficult for me to say that they should go out right at the off. But then again, we've all got strong teams here nowadays, given the way the league is structured with only 12 teams in play. So, the best 60 players all on these teams kind of makes sense. But yeah, definitely some spicy matches here, especially if we get London-Paris round 2, that kind of rematch that we saw at Minnesota, Chicago-Dallas, another rematch, and then the grand finals, whichever way it falls, is going to be very spicy indeed, and I'm sure the crowd are going to be behind them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Hope you're looking forward to this weekend. Just wanted to finish up with this clip from Morks, talking about how the spawns maybe are not in the best state right now, but I'm pretty sure we all knew that anyway. Thanks for watching as always. Like if you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you next time.
Back cave, one shot, back cave. They spawned back cave. They spawned in the alley.
Billy weak.
Back cave was seen.
Back cave was seen.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him. I'm just holding. Wait.
Phil got a Rex on one truck. How did that happen?
Yeah, he just spawned there. What, man?